Hello, sir.
Good morning, Jody. Nice to see you again. It's been a while.
It's been so long, so long, and it was so brief too. Uh, so we had a ruling come down yesterday that the Ninth Circuit now has said that Trump can control the National Guard here in California, but that he's not insulated from judicial review. Now, after when I did hear the arguments that were laid out, which I agreed with on Governor Newsom's part, but then I heard the judges talking to them. It sounded like they were going to rule this way. Did it sound like that to you? Did you hope that they were going to do the right thing?
Yeah, I always try to keep hope alive. And when I hear a judge ask the Department of Justice, Donald Trump's third-rate lawyers who are arguing these cases. So wait a minute, you're saying that this isn't even susceptible to judicial review? So even if there's no evidence supporting what Donald Trump is doing, we, the judiciary, a co-equal branch of government, don't get to weigh in? I hear that as, being critical of the position that
Right.
DOJ was advocating, but apparently it wasn't particularly critical. Jody, it's small consolation when they say, hey, this is susceptible to judicial review, but we're going to let him do it anyway. Well, then what good does the judicial review do?
Right. I mean, because honestly, until the National Guard got here, there wasn't any unrest. So what was the point of them sending them here when there wasn't, nobody was on? It was insane.
You're
It was
exactly
insane.
right. And let me cheat a little bit and read something I posted because I've been pretty damn agitated by this ruling. And I say a California appeals court just ruled in favor of Trump being able to militarize the streets of America. That's right. Trump gets to create chaos using masked, anonymous stormtroopers. And then he gets to deploy the military against the citizenry to tamp down the chaos he created.
Right.
This is civilized society turned on its head.
Yep.
And I hope, maybe against hope, that the next step, which will be en banc review,
Right.
a full Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals panel, all judges will revisit this. I hope they reverse course.
Me too.
Then, of course, it goes up to the Supreme Court. But I'll tell you, if they let Donald Trump militarize the streets of America after he is the one who created the chaos, we are now sprinting toward autocracy.
Yeah, that is very frightening. We were talking about earlier the fact that the Dodgers turned away what we all thought were ICE agents. They weren't in. There was no insignia on these people. They were masked up, and a Times reporter asked them, "Where are you from?" And they said DHS. And again, it gets to the point that we were talking about yesterday. If these are masked and they don't have anything, these guys don't even wear badges that they're covering. There's nothing on these guys that identifies them as law enforcement. Plus, they're in unmarked vehicles on top of it all. And two of the vehicles that this one woman saw, they were at the Home Depot bringing people in, which is an ICE job. And then DHS is saying CBP is just processing them. So it's like, it's very confusing. And do we have the right, if somebody with no insignia starts to grab somebody, do we have the right to fight back physically?
Yeah, the chaos and confusion is intentional. That is the plan of the Trump administration. And when we had the assassination of a politician and her husband in Minnesota by somebody who was, purporting to be a police officer, but with no legitimate insignia, wearing a mask, albeit a silicone mask, it's an impossibly difficult piece of advice to give.
Right.
Do you resist or do you comply? Well, you don't want to comply if they're not legitimate police officers, and you don't want to resist if they are.
Right.
But they are the ones who are depriving the people of the right to assess whether they're legitimate police officers or not. And that's intentional. The chaos is intentional because why? It creates a heightened need to do what? Tamp down the chaos that Trump has created and send the military to the streets. Yep. So that the fact that the courts are going to buy into this, Jody, is really troubling because they're still applying the law as if we had a legitimate law-abiding president who was loyal to the Constitution, and we don't.
Right, exactly. This is something else that came down in Texas yesterday. Texas judge overturned the Biden administration's rule designed to keep prosecutors from getting the medical records of patients seeking legal abortions or gender-affirming care by boosting privacy protections. So, Kaczmarek, I believe is how we pronounce his name. He's the Mifepristone judge as well. Now, I seem to recall Pete Hegseth being very upset that district court judges were doing laws that apply to the entire country. So is this guy.
Well, they're only upset when, they dislike what the judges do. And maybe there was one little corner of a woman's womb that our federal government had not yet accessed. So let's make sure we give over the entirety of the womb, and maybe we consider criminally punishing those women who do something that, rich white politicians disagree with. I mean, I raised 5 daughters. I still can't believe that we are in a place in America where we are letting politicians and judges make reproductive health decisions for women against their will and over their objection. This has all got to change. I don't know how or when, but it's got to change unless we're just willing to kind of live in North Korea or Russia or, other dictatorships.
Yeah, I mean, this ruling basically says that prosecutors can go after women who leave Texas to go get an abortion, say in California, which is legal here. And so that's like saying, I don't know if Texas allows gambling, but say they don't, and you go to Vegas and you gamble and you win money, are they going to arrest you for gambling because it's illegal? I mean,
which is a violation of the Commerce Clause.
Exactly.
We're supposed to be able to travel interstate in order to do things that are legal in other states. I would like to say, Jody, that when this one gets up to the Supreme Court, it will be reversed, but I'm not so foolish that I'm willing to say the Supreme Court will ever do the right thing these days.
And before we get on the transgender thing, because that still just chaps my hide, there's a new provision in the Senate big bill that is about people having to put in the same amount of, say you want to sue the federal government, Grassley put this in. This is how it reads. It says, no court of the United States may issue a preliminary injunction or temporary restraining order against the federal government if no security is given in an amount proper to pay the costs and damages sustained by the federal government when the injunction or order is issued pursuant to Rule 65C. No court may consider any factor other than the value of the costs and damages sustained when making its determination of the proper value of such security. That determination, basically, what it sounds like is if I want to sue the government for $10 million, I got to put up a $10 million bond. Is that my correct reading of that?
You are, and let me contradict what I said a minute ago. I don't think the Supreme Court will buy into this one.
Okay.
Because you know what this is? This is a poll tax, but it's not designed to make people have to pay to vote. It's designed to make people have to pay to have their legal rights vindicated in court. It is the judicial version of a poll tax. It's a court tax. Mm-hmm. I don't think judges will buy into this. Listen, let the idiots in Congress, these weak, sniveling little, Donald Trump supporters, let them put whatever unconstitutional garbage they want in the big, ugly bill. I don't think the courts will buy into that for a minute, because it's kind of the opposite of what our system of justice, our criminal and civil justice systems are supposed to be about. Everybody gets access to the court to try to make their case. You don't have to put up millions of dollars before you're able to file a lawsuit.
Yeah, I mean, it seems, well, obviously, if that were to become law, then only super duper wealthy people can sue the federal government, which it's wrong. Yeah. I mean, that's just wrong. So let's get to the transgender ruling at the Supreme Court. I like that you called John Roberts Dr. John Roberts yesterday. Because it's personal for me. I have a transgender grandniece, but I also have many friends that are transgender. And so none of them, by the way, were able to get care when they were younger because they just didn't. And you can't, it's insane that they said cis children can get the hormone therapies they need, but people that are trans cannot. And you're assigned your sex at birth. Some people are intersex. Some people, whatever it looks like on the outside is what they are, but they find out later there are other things involved. So it's not fair to the person that if they are, and you have to be diagnosed this way. It's not like you just show up and say, hey, if I showed up tomorrow and said, hey, I'm a dude, well, I need to go through, there's therapy, there's all sorts of things you have to go through even to start that. And it's taking away parents' rights. So it reminds me of Dobbs and Plessy and all of those things. Your thoughts? Go.
Yeah. So first of all, let me start with it's also personal for me because you have a transgender grandniece. And I don't say that flippantly. It's personal to me because it involves equal protection of the laws for everybody.
Exactly.
And that's why it should be personal
To everybody.
for everybody.
Absolutely.
And Dr. John Roberts thinks he is the one who can make these medical determinations, and he supplants the right of the transgender person, the family of that person, the doctors, the medical care providers. He says, no, I know best. I will take over that responsibility for everybody because y'all aren't up to the task to making it. Here's a quick quote from John Roberts. The Tennessee ban does not exclude any individual from medical treatments on the basis of transgender status, but rather removes one set of diagnoses, gender dysphoria, gender identity disorder, and gender incongruence from the range of treatable conditions. Thank you, Dr. John Roberts. Who in the hell do you think you are to render this medical advice and bind everybody to it when you're not a damn doctor? This is like not constitutional law. It is this social engineering because they don't like certain kinds and categories of people. Are you kidding me? This is where we are in America. And as we discussed yesterday, we've been here before, Plessy versus Ferguson, when the Supreme Court said, oh, government-sponsored racial segregation, as long as it's separate but equal, that's just fine. Or Korematsu interning people just because they happen to be of Japanese ancestry, that's fine. Ultimately, those horrific Supreme Court rulings were reversed and are, they have a special place in Supreme Court justice hell and unequal treatment. Hopefully this will get to a point where it's reversed as well, but these things, unfortunately, ordinarily can take years or decades to make right. But this is where we are.